WATV.
Unless you want me to introduce
Yep.
the show.
She's on. Oh, shoot.
We're on.
We're on.
Try to focus a little. I'm having monitor troubles here.
Camera's focused.
Welcome
See
to
that?
this evening's show. Are we live right now?
We are.
We are. It's happening.
Conant Show. Introduce yourself.
My name's Liz Dieleman, and I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank you so much to George and Paula and Woodstock. And I'm going to start us off this evening with a song that I wrote. It's called Hold It Down. I'm gonna hold it down for y'all tonight, along with George and some other fine folk. I've got my heart turned on and I feel you do too. It's not hard to notice the pulsing of what's true. I hate to tell you, but I've got to go offline. There is interference between me and divine. Got to fix it, gonna seek a cure. Gonna find a flower in the underworld. If I steep it in oil and I boil it down and pour over your brow. Don't worry about me, I don't fret for you at all. You can trust a promise when it's written on the wall. I've just one request. I have seen you do before. Please leave a light on and don't lock up the door. I'm off to fix things, to find a cure. I know grows a flower in the underworld. If I steep it in oil and I boil it down and pour over my brow. Hold it down here. Well, I'm not around. Will you hold it down for me? Keep your lamplight trimmed. I'll be coming back for you. The fire you are keeping illuminates the moon while I fumble to fix it, poking around, falling down rabbit holes under the ground, coming up with answers that I knew from the start. jump on in.
So, welcome to the Conant Show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I heard your birdie tweets.
Indeed.
Yeah, I always like to thank our engineer, Paula Gloria, for helping
Absolutely.
put this show together. It's my mentor and friend here is really
Awesome.
a godsend. And so we have another guest here tonight. You are
Tim
Tim Demme?
Demme.
And you're another musician?
I'm not a musician, no, but I like to hang around them.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
He's my groupie, right? He's more than just a groupie. That's just
That's good.
yeah.
So Elizabeth Dieleman is one of the more gifted and talented artists I've met in a long, long time. And we did play music for, what, 6 months? Was it a year
yeah,
even?
We
It was a
played
while.
on and off, yeah.
Yeah, it was some pretty interesting conglomerations of musicians we had. I still have them. If you'd like, you can swing that mic around. If you
Oh yeah.
are good at that, and you can chime in with stuff. So there's a lot of gifts that you have, and I'd like to share with our audience a little bit about you. And you know, you got some pretty interesting credits to your name. And one is it's in the spiritual realms. So
Well, I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but I am a
you're a minister,
I
right?
am an ordained interfaith minister. Yes, I went to the New Seminary, which is based in Manhattan, and went through the ordination process. And so I didn't go online, folks, and take the 5-minute test. Although
I did, though.
he did, and we have contentious discussions about this. No, we really don't. But
You might want to get a little closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Just so you know.
I got to
it's-
lean into the mic. It's a
yeah, it's-
sound
it's-
thing.
yes, the sound is important when you have just video and no sound.
Sound.
How long did you study for your degree in ministry?
It's a 2-year program, and I had the option because they vet you when you apply, and they say, well, you seem intelligent enough. You have the option of doing it in 1 year instead of 2. So I did. I condensed 2 years worth of study into 1 year. So
I studied for 20 years, and then I sent away for my certificate.
I'll listen to him. All right. Well,
All right, and interfaith as well.
I don't know what to call it exactly.
Okay.
I love that we're diving right into this discussion. This is big stuff. It really is.
Well, I mean, why not? Right? I mean, the time is short. We don't. We have this.
This is where we are in our moment in time. We don't have time for small talk, right? We really have to cut to the chase. Now is the time.
Okay. Why? Why? What's your take on that? What do you feel?
Why?
Happening?
Because I feel like that's kind of an annoying preface. I feel like, from my understanding, based on things that, based on insights, based on intuitions, and based on studies, we're at a point where the veils are very thin, and we have the opportunity to go right to the source, right to the point, right to the gist of it. And not because we're so lucky, although it's a blessing that the veils are thin at this time, but out of necessity. Now, what exactly that necessity is, I'm not really sure that I have the authority to speak on that. I could make some guesses. But just based on what I observe and what I understand and what I have gathered, that we really have an opportunity to go for it, so to speak, right now. And many spiritual teachers are giving everything forward rather than saying, all right, I'm going to dole it out in little dribs and drabs according to your level. And no, it's all available to us now. And one of the very obvious ways that you can see that manifested is the internet. We can now have tons of information instantaneously at our fingertips. We can talk to many teachers. We can read almost any book that we want. Yes, I know the internet there are people who are controlling what we can see and what we can't. However, for the most part, so much is available to us that, 10, 20, 30, 1,000 years ago was certainly not available to us. So it's all available now, as much as we can get. And whatever we can get, I think is good enough.
I think what you're bringing out is a few shows, in a couple of previous shows here, the topics crops up about how technology has accelerated to such a point. Now, the internet and information technology and such is really catapulted our culture, it's driving our culture. It had been our culture that had been driving technology, and now the technology is driving the culture. I'm big on the archaeology, so when I look at finds that I've made, like one find was in 1970s. There was this terrific flood. There was this tropical storm system in Rockland County, just south of here, about 60 miles, that stalled off the coast, and we just got like 3 weeks of rain. I mean, it was just endless rain, and the brooks became raging rivers, and some of these acres of farmland and stuff, or not much of it left in the county by then, but this Van Houten's Farms is what I'm thinking of, because this is where I made a find, was swept away, all of this earth, right? And then, things kind of got back to normal, and the brook was a brook again. And I was just poking around looking for fossils and stuff, as a kid would do, and I noticed a couple of things. One was the river had precisely unearthed an oval fire pit. And you could still see the carbon. And this is about 8 feet of earth.
Wow.
Had been washed away down to that level that it was exposed. And in the embankment where it had been carved away, like a little canyon, a little miniature canyon, I found pottery. And the pottery had little incisions on it, so you could see a little, a very, kind of, I hate to use the word primitive, but, a simple little decoration on this little shard of pottery. But it was so old and so delicate that just handling it in my hand, it just crumbled and sort of went away. And that was one of my earliest experiences touching the handiwork of somebody from thousands of years ago. And it was kind of an awesome feeling. And you grow, you get older, and you find other things in life, and then the magic of the internet, now there's all these archaeological videos, in YouTube that are, fabulous about ancient technology and, and one of the things that I had always ruminated on is that, it seems as though civilizations come and go. And my brother Ray was really big into Atlantis and the Egyptians. He made a kind of a study of that. So I got the benefit of listening to him discuss these ideas about how do you explain a culture, the Egyptians, whose apparent civilization started at the top and then decayed. It didn't do the normal, organic growth from, agriculture or hunter-gatherer to agriculture to, working with stone and then, working with metals and then, being able to do and build pyramids and all of this. No, it was just the opposite. And the thing about these ancient structures like the pyramids and many others is we can't duplicate them. With all our great,
Yeah, isn't it interesting?
we can't duplicate
Yeah.
a lot of these things. So that thought that came up, I will connect this. I'm getting there.
I believe you. I feel it.
Is that these anomalies of the past, where it appears that there was a great deal of technology, and then ruination of some kind, and this is where I have the benefit of my 20 years of spiritual development with the Senecas and the Mohawks, and in those teachings they remember this cultural failure of they called it civilization scale failure, and that they were very, very advanced, and the Mohawk, their tradition says that they're actually immigrants from the Yucatan Peninsula.
That's right.
They're Maya, and they had escaped a terrible, terrible failure. And what, as you were talking about the veil being thinner, is it the feeling or the observation that our civilization could be facing a failure?
Well, and if I may, like the necessity
jump
that
in.
you spoke of earlier is that, and Alan Watts talks about this in the book, well, his book called The Book, is that this is the first time in history that a civilization failure, we're talking like it's a global civilization now. So if we're talking about civilization failure, we're talking about the end of the experiment. The end of the experiment that is this dimension, that is this realm, the earthly realm. So that's, to me, the difference about this conversation compared to, say, the Egyptians or the Mayans or any other civilization where there was this civilization failure, is that we're talking about a global civilization now, and failure would mean
Total failure.
total failure, and like we don't get to sit here and contemplate the Egyptians, or we don't get to sit here and sift through and find the pottery shards and the fire rings after a flood. Like, game over.
It can be. It can be.
What the necessity is that you spoke
If
of
there
earlier.
is system failure, you're saying. No,
Yeah.
I don't get the feeling that you're saying it's imminent or that it's necessary, but you're saying if.
If and there's a lot of potential for it. Like that's.
There's potential for it. Yeah.
There's potential for greatness as well.
Right.
That's what makes humans kind of interesting in the universe, is that we are magical creatures. At least that's my contention.
Right. Yeah.
I think that we can think, and that's a powerful energy. Thought is energy.
Absolutely.
Thought's a frequency, and frequencies create matter. So it's not that great a stretch to think and create. As musicians and artists, I'm a multi-talent, and that creative process is largely thinking. My partner tends to think that I'm wasting my time.
What, thinking?
And I say, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm thinking. Well, you don't look like you're doing anything. Why don't you go, be productive?
I have an idea. Call it contemplating instead.
Well, I don't know what the difference really would be to contemplate.
Maybe someone just likes the word better.
Yeah, that's all.
But, well, you see, I don't know. I had a masterful teacher who was very strong on language, and that language is powerful. And
Absolutely.
And no two words mean the same thing.
No. Well, I'm part of a Christian Bible study, and yesterday we read the book of John, which starts with, in the beginning is the Word. So I'm right there with you. Words are very, very powerful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's vibration.
Absolutely, and so are thoughts. I mean, Tim and I were discussing. We went to see the movie Doctor Strange, and on the ride home, it struck me because we take for granted that we live. I was saying to him, I'm like, oh, what do you think of the movie? I'm like, yeah, it was good. I really like the special effects, and it kind of reminded me, it's the same sort of plot as The Matrix, and we're kind of comparing and talking about it. And I'm like, this is where our minds are now. Remember this conversation where now we can hold in our minds the concept of something of alternate dimensions and
Astral bodies
and space-time and all these, sci-fi concepts that, take it back a couple generations, and of course even further, and you could say that there were civilizations where they maybe had these concepts, but they were lost, Mayan concepts or the pyramids or such. But okay, say for that, go back, a number of years, and we didn't have this concept in our minds. We didn't know what a dimension was, an alternate dimension, and these powers and warping time and space and wormholes and all this stuff. We just take it for granted, and we say, oh, well, some people believe in it, some people say it's just science fiction. But the fact that we can grasp the possibility of these things in our minds is huge, I think. That's like a major development. I think that we can even hold that concept, and that makes sense to us. Whether or not it's true. The fact that we can hold that.
Conceive of it.
Conceive of it. And then when we can conceive of it, then it's that much closer to being a reality. And in fact, I guess if what we're saying is true about thoughts, then it is a reality.
And it may be, who knows, maybe it's a matter of simply enough of us of conceiving of something that it becomes so. It becomes so.
Yeah.
There's a great old magazine that was out for, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years called Omni. Do you remember Omni?
Yeah.
Well, that was a a scientific publication, and one article, I think it was maybe in 1983, 84, somewhere in there, I read a really neat article about how there are physicists and exotic scientists, in various realms, non-particle physics and such, that would have very divergent theories on a thing, all right? And they would set about to prove themselves correct and the other wrong. And what started happening was, in these realms of experiment, is that they were getting results, positive, proof positive, in all cases. And this created a real conundrum for the objective observer, because the experimenter isn't objective. That's the subjective observer. He's the one, he or she is designed an experiment to prove thus and such, and then it does. But this is in complete conflict with this other scientist who is working on a parallel thing.
Right.
And the end of the article came to, so the quantum physicists are now left with this, kind of horrible thought, which is that if they can think it, they can create it. And this is, a principle, that has been known to the ancients, forever, which is the power of thought, the spoken word, and action. When you commit to an action after speaking it and thinking it. So you call into existence something by naming it. That's what, again, a powerful word, name. Mm-hmm. Do you know what to name means? Some of the permutations of that word. It means to identify something. Mm-hmm. It means to claim it. If you name something, it's yours.
Hmm.
So there's these qualities to language that we do need to pay attention to. And the other thought, that as we're circulating in the kind of times that we're in, is we last Wednesday at about 9 in the morning, I happened to drive through Woodstock, and it was almost a ghost town.
Yeah.
The feeling was ominous.
There were tears falling from the sky.
Yes, apparently. And I was rather, kind of bemused by this because, I don't take these elections seriously. And I have my reasons. I'm a no voter, right? And I think something like 55% of the eligible vote did not vote. And that, in my mind, is a vote. When you have
Sure.
more than 51% of our population that's eligible to vote not voting, that's a vote of no confidence. That means that they just don't want any of the choices that have been put forward.
Yeah.
And then when you parse it all down to the percentage of the eligible vote that actually selected the leadership, if that's really what's even going on, because I'm very I just don't believe any of it. I think it's all smoke and mirrors. But now that we have President-elect Trump, something like 13 or percent of the eligible vote is what determined that. Right. And again, to me, it's like talking about particle physics or ancient history or politics. We have this table. It's here. We can prove it. But we can't prove any of this stuff. We can't prove how many voted or didn't vote. And when, you have programmers who built these voting machines telling us that, well, actually they're programmed to flip votes to the direction that the programmer wants them to flip the votes to. So, to me, there's just no credibility in anything on that kind of a level.
Or I voted, but I don't even know if my vote counts because it was my district. For some reason, I was still registered in the wrong district, and so I had to do an absentee vote, and there's no guarantee that actually made it in. So it's like I voted, but did I really vote? Might not have even counted.
Yeah. Well, as Stalin would say, it's not who votes that counts, it's who counts the votes.
Oh, yeah. Stalin. Oh.
Yeah. Right, yeah. So there was this sort of dark cloud over Woodstock with a great deal of unhappiness, and I personally don't think that it will make much of a difference. See, that's my contention is that there is this power machine, there's this control paradigm, and it kind of does what it wants. And the thing that it wants to do most is control everything, but mostly humans, and part of that control is the spiritual side of things.
Yeah. Well, and it's an age-old tale, right? I mean, it's the Leviathan and the Golem and Frankenstein's monster. It's something that is created but then has a life of its own and takes over that which created it in the first place. I mean, what's a corporation, right? I mean, now corporations have more power than humans, and even the name corporation is based on a corpse. It's not actually a real entity, and yet it even has more power than real entities that set it in motion in the first place. I mean, all of these things, what you're talking about, it's soulless. So now we're being run by things that don't have souls. So, I mean, what does that mean? And then, I mean, specifically, what does that mean for then those who do have souls? What can we do about that? What's the meaning of that? What kind of power do we have versus the power over something that does not have a soul? What would it take to get the power back, or what would it take to ensoul something? What is a soul? What's the value?
Well, my one teacher would say that our soul was a spirited energy, right? A spirited energy that is almost like a recording device, and that each life experience adds to that wisdom of that soul. And souls have a life, and they're born, and they grow, and they age, and they develop, and they can die, and they can descend or ascend, but and part of the training ground for the experience of the soul, because when the soul is discarnate, it can't touch, it can't experience, it can only observe.
Mm-hmm.
So the theory goes, because we don't know. And that was one of the things that was always so engaging with for me with Grandma Twy, is that she said, well, bottom line is we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we call it the great mystery. In this philosophy, there is no God concept. It's the great mystery. It's bigger than us, it made us, we don't know what it is, and it's smarter. So this is the construction that we're in, and we have to sort of divine, which is another word with interesting sides to it. We have to divine from our experience what's real and what the lesson is. What are we learning from it? Or divine messages. A red bird just went from left to right. Well, see, okay, so a bird is a high ideal. Red is blood, it's female, it's speaking the truth. Left to right is from spirit to action. See, so that's this is a medicine wheel interpretation of anything.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, a little red bird went from left, and you observe it. And what direction was I facing? Well, I was facing north. Okay, so I'm learning a lesson in wisdom about speaking the truth, and speaking truth and bringing spiritual ideas into the physical.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there was this augury that Native people embraced and used to try to understand the great mystery. And another aspect of this is cosmic law. And when you started talking about the veils are thin, I kind of want to revisit that, because that's a heady topic, that's a heady thought. And what does that mean to you? How are you seeing it manifest? Because Grandma Twy would talk about that as well, but she usually talked about it in the context of when she assisted people or was with people when they were dying. And as she would say that little babies and children who just learned to talk are still close to the veil, and so are old people when they're getting ready to exit this experience.
Well, no, that's very interesting, because if we take it back to what Tim was saying about how we may be facing sort of global failure, maybe that's what it takes. Maybe it takes almost total failure, complete death. Maybe we're all dying. We're very close to dying. And that's when the veil gets thin. And so maybe it takes we have to push it that far to the point where we're about to frickin' crash for it to be that thin for us to see. And, kind of like how, when you write your best paper, when you're under the pressure of procrastination, it's like maybe we have to really carry it that, like, oh my God, okay, things are pretty bad. And then we can actually see what needs to be done and actually take action and do it. But I do want to be very clear about something. In my personal belief, based on what I know today, this could change tomorrow. What I feel today, though, is that, what you're speaking about, the great mystery, it is not our duty as human beings, or even as souls, or whatever we are right now, with the capacity that we have, and the capacity that is even a couple steps beyond where we are. It is not our duty to know all of the answers of the great mystery. I think it's impossible. I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's right. The mystery of the mystery of the mystery, we can never penetrate that. So I'm not one of these people that I think, I can, or we even should, understand the mind of God per se. And of course, you have to bear with me with these words, because we don't have the right words, God, whatever the mystery. But, I've been reading Dion Fortune's book on Kabbalah, and she's very serious about the fact that when you get to the levels that are above the manifestation of the tree of life, They are not concepts that we will ever understand, and we must be okay with that. And it is the people who are not comfortable with that, who are trying so hard to grasp and have and understand and penetrate everything, that are actually getting us into trouble. Those are actually what she calls, in her cosmology, the black magicians.
The black magicians.
Yes.
They are the black magicians in this idea are individuals or people who are tinkering with the unknown, so to speak, or
right. I mean, I like that phrase, tinkering with the unknown, which is not to say, though, that you can't try to understand heady concepts. The whole point of the Kabbalah is to try to understand that which is a little bit beyond what we've got going on here. But it's not to try to become God. It's not to try to usurp God.
Well, and let's go back to what you were just saying a minute ago about the potential global failure and the veils being so thin, and perhaps it's because we're close to that place of death as a culture ourselves. It was very interesting the body language you were using to describe that, because it sounded and looked very much like childbirth.
Right.
And so,
well, the two are so connected.
And so, childbirth could be considered a global failure to the fetus. And and so that's just a whole other way of conceptualizing global failure. Is the end of something and the beginning of something different.
Of course, yeah.
But in that metaphor, who or what would the black magicians be who are tinkering with the childbirth? Like, if that's what's happening, then who or what are the black magicians in that scenario?
Well, they would be people who are, I guess, trying to go against that which is. People who are trying to
abort the fetus, trying to what? Like inside of that analogy.
Right. Like going against the grain. And this is like a really deep concept. I mean, it gets into like something that I've been fascinated with recently is the myth of Prometheus. It's also been connected to the concept of Lucifer, and this idea that it is almost it's like our birthright, or it's like to steal the light, or to steal the power of God and bring it down to earth so that we have it too. And it's this intense belief that human beings have the ultimate potential, and that we can do anything from here if we can only get from here to there. And they are willing to go to any length to get from here to there.
Yeah, okay, so you made me just flash on something. See, now I'm looking at it from the other direction, is God, or the great mystery, is bestowed and bequeathed and given to us freely. That God power, that God energy, call it love if you will. All right, and the dark magicians are very busy trying to shut that down, that flow from the cosmic abundance to the mortal, flesh. Right?
Well, that's kind of like an more of a Gnostic view, where you've got like the archons, right? Or some people associate the archons with like the lizard people or something. So you've got a race of beings who are trying to trick the human soul, the human construct, into believing that they are the creator gods and that we should worship them, as opposed to looking up to the higher realms and actually worshiping God. So yeah, they're trying to stop the connection between the ultimate divine, the light of lights, the treasury of lights, and they're like a false life, and they're like, pay no attention, and they're like, no, I'm God, I'm the light. And this gets into again, you have to bring it around to technology. It's like technology can be that gift which helps us maybe where all information is laid out to us, but it's also a false light. Electricity is a false light, and it can benefit us, but it is not the true light of the sun. Correct? So we can kind of get turned around, and we can sort of worship technology. And what is technology? It's human imagination. It's human power. Like, we did this. We built this television studio. I mean, the fact that we can broadcast something, the fact that we can share these concepts with a wider audience, you'd think that's good, that's wonderful, and there's lights and there's heat, and it's November, and I'm sitting in a short sleeve shirt in a building, and it's like, it's wonderful. But we can't get mesmerized by that and forget that there's like a true light.
Well, there's the idea of the cost of it.
Yeah.
That there's the cost of what we have. But when you said electricity is a false light, I would challenge that. In that there are more than one model of the sun and the universe, and one of the things that I stumbled into in the past 10 years is the electric universe model, and that the sun is not a nuclear furnace, but is actually a living being, and that it draws energy from these rivers of electrons that are illuminating, that are powering the sun to illuminate it. So its coronal field is a field phenomenon. It's an electric field phenomena, and there's this idea of the Metatron. There's only one electron, and it's what's making everything happen. That's how fast it moves. But my twins, when they were little, were asking me, about these kinds of ideas, and I said, well, as far as I can figure it, when you go small enough, looking into matter and reality, everything comes down to electrons. The atoms, the smallest parts of the atoms are electrons. And so it seems to me that everything is light. Everything is electrons. Everything is a field that has different speeds and different qualities, which will make density, which will make things ethereal and such. So the argument could be that maybe electricity is like the hand of God, or a tool of God. It's just a thought.
Right, of course. I mean,
but
I was using the sun as a metaphor, but I totally hear you. But we shouldn't see mistake the part for the whole, maybe, is a way to say that then. Don't mistake the tool of God for God
for
itself.
the real deal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a cautionary tale for a lot of things, things often aren't as they appear.
Yeah.
Illusions. And sometimes those are natural, like a mirage. There are explanations. There's explanations for these illusions, and sometimes the illusion is deception. I'm confronted with a law case right now, right, where my partner is in a situation which is been accused of something, right, and the shoulders shrugged, and the statement goes, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. Everybody thinks that. So if there's smoke, there's fire. And I said, well, yeah, that's okay to a point, except for that sometimes the fire is arson.
That's right.
So you things are not.
And smoke and mirrors.
And there's and illusions.
That's
and,
right.
And lies.
That's right.
See, yeah. So what would old Wilhelm Reich have to say about all this?
Wilhelm Reich, I got this little guy right here. Wilhelm Reich. Well, let's see.
Did you ever see or listen to his message to the future?
I don't think so. Can I find it on YouTube, on the internet, where all information is available to us?
Paula
check it out.
was sharing it with me a
Listen,
couple of
little
weeks.
man.
Listen,
Listen, Little Man, the documentary.
No, just his.
The book.
The book.
Oh,
It's
great.
3.5 hours. I played it out on Woodstock
Oh,
TV.
cool. Very cool. Good.
But there's also a rare recording of him where he's speaking to the future too.
Yeah.
And I listened to that a couple weeks ago, and he had great I would say sadness. I mean, it was beyond sad, almost like he was grieving for the future, because nobody, except for the Dark Lords, the black magicians perhaps, understood what he was working with.
Interesting.
It's not really that he discovered it. He identified something that exists. So I guess he discovered it in that sense. But it's been known through, as prana and ki and all this life force energy, all these different names for orgone. But what he had developed from that study, from observing it, was actually being able to use orgone energy for mechanical work, like electricity. And as he went from his psychiatric and medical study, he found himself doing battle with UFOs in the 1950s. And it was all connected to this life energy. And, I bring this up because he was at an age and time where even his brightest students thought he was off his rocker.
Right.
He was alone on the top of the mountain.
What time period was this that you say he was seeing the UFOs?
He was through the 40s and 50s.
50s? Uh-huh.
40s and 50s,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
All right.
He had been conscripted by the Air Force along with Nikola Tesla and this guy Trevor Constable, and the three of them were charged with studying the Earth and the atmosphere and the different components of the Earth and the atmosphere. Trevor Constable was given the latest infrared photographic technology, and he was photographing the atmosphere, and he discovered that it was really composed of living creatures, very large ones.
Atmosphere?
Yeah, the atmosphere there's another order of life. He called them sky critters. And if you were to look at bubble wrap, like bubble wrap, right? It's like the Earth is actually encased, and the atmosphere is composed of these bubble-like units that and they're geometric. Do you ever look, if you look at a collection of bubbles in like bubble bath or something, and you really look at all of the facets that happen from the bubbles all being connected to each other, it's much like a beehive.
Yeah.
Right? It gets this very geometric form. That's what it looks like in this photography. It's amazing. And they have heat signatures. So these invisible creatures to the naked eye, which are huge, and there's big ones and little ones, so apparently there's male and female, and they replicate. And he went on to go and say that they get so big that eventually they move out into space.
Now, were these like the sylphs and the salamanders and the undines, or is this something beyond the elementals?
Well, if we're looking at the word the elementals as another order of life, then I would just say that they are a part of that other order of life that's very difficult to measure.
Yeah, right.
And identify.
Right.
And so the reason that the Air Force hired these guys, these giants of our age, really, I mean, all this electricity that Nikola Tesla gave us the alternating current and the generating station, at Niagara Falls and all of this. And why isn't he taught, about in school from the first grade on? I mean, here is this brilliant and altruistic man, and our civilization has everything to owe to him, and yet, you have to grow up and then seek him out. It's much better.
Stumble across him on the internet.
Yeah, and,
yeah.
But it's the dark overlords again. It's the black magicians, usurp all of this, like the free energy, or not free energy, but 0 point energy, all these concepts that we can create, right? And we have an opportunity because of the pressure point of the potential for civilization failure. And that is, not to escape these three guys just yet. Wilhelm Reich was studying the living quality of the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikola Tesla was studying the electromagnetic and field phenomena,
Mm-hmm.
and how these connected and worked with each other. And the ultimate reasoning of the Air Force, and you're going to love this, was that the Air Force wanted to understand the atmosphere because it regarded anything in the atmosphere it didn't understand as the enemy. And these three guys really didn't have a choice. They were like, either you're going to work for us or we'll break your legs.
Yeah,
It's kind of like that.
Right.
So, any thoughts?
I don't know Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah.
It occurs to me that, like, when you talk about being godlike, or the desire to be godlike, or that's what's possible for man. I've really recently been introduced to the concept of anthropos, and this is where Rudolf Steiner's philosophy comes from, anthroposophy. The idea that the best translation of the Greek is fully human, or a whole human being.
Okay.
And as I understand it, it's the idea that we can be both fully, we can dwell fully in spirit, and at the same time dwell in being human, and that's the ideal. And so it's this concept of being fully human, or wholly human, or I think as like maybe Jed McKenna would put it, the human adulthood. It's not so much about being gods ourselves, but being aligned with the universal energy, the great mystery,
Mm-hmm.
and being aligned with it, walking in the world in a way that is aligned with the great mystery.
The cosmic law. That's, our elders would talk about that all the time, is that's knowing who you are and where you are and why you're here. And those are the big questions. We got 2 minutes. Do you want to take us out? And we're going to have to come back. I mean, that was the fastest hour I think I've had yet here.
All right.
Thank you guys so much. Liz Dieleman and
Tim Demme.
Thank you so much. And viewers, I hope you really enjoyed our show. I sure did. That was a blast. And I'll let Liz get comfortable here, and she'll take us out with some more birdie tweets.
Oh, nice.
That beautiful voice of yours, and original songs, and beautiful messages.
Only here. Thank you, George.
Well, I'll do this one because I just feel like it's appropriate for our discussion. This is called Star Child. I'm a star child, given up to bone and clay. Star child, garden earth is where I play. Star child, dream by night and dance by day. temporary state. From a womb of salt and sweetened water, I'm a son, I'm a daughter. I am an angel without wings. I am 10,000 things. Hold me. My light is strong, but my body is weak. Hold me. Loving arms are all I seek. Hold me. To your body's beating breast, hold me. Just breathe, God does the rest. Born of love's divine intent, I have come, heaven sent, born to learn how to be brave, born to teach the soul to save. I'm a star child, given up to bone and clay. Star child, garden earth is where I play. Star child, dream by night and dance by day. Star child, this my temporary state. From a womb of salt and sweetened water, I'm a son, I'm a daughter.